Welcome to MCP, the Multi-Crew Podcast, your go-to destination for everything aviation. From the latest headlines to the quirkiest aviation stories, we cover it all. I'm Aiden, and alongside my co-host Alfie.
How's it going, guys? We'll bring you engaging discussions, technical insights, and of course, the fan favourite engine of the week. So buckle up, and let's get started.
So, we've made it to the second episode.
We have.
We've survived a whole episode.
The first episode weren't too bad, was it?
It wasn't too bad at all.
It could have been worse. It could have gone a lot worse.
Exactly.
So we're hoping this one's going to be a little bit better. A few more improvements.
We've got a few other things we're talking about. We've got an exciting, action-packed episode for you.
It is correct. That is very correct. It is very action-packed, and whoever's listening is going to have a very good time.
Exactly.
Probably.
Right,
Probably.
So we'll move straight into aviation headlines of the last week at the time of recording. So the first one is Northrop Grumman starts the French Navy aircraft production of the E-2D Advanced Hawkeye, which is a surveillance and control aircraft. It's a carrier-based one, isn't it?
It is, correct.
It's actually the only carrier-based one. It's entered service in 1964 with its first flight in 1960. Quite old.
1964.
Yeah, and do you know?
As old as my dad.
Exactly. And a random fact, actually, it's it is the only carrier-based aircraft that has continued production since its first aircraft till now. Still in production. Obviously through different variations, 4 different variations, the A, the B, the C, the D. We are now on the D, the Advanced Hawkeye. As I say, it's been here for a long time. The A variant did enter service with a lot of issues, but the B variant did address most of those issues.
It irons some of those issues out, did it?
Exactly. Stop words from my mouth. But no, it has commenced production of the Advanced Hawkeyes for the French Navy, which is a milestone. But why do they want these aircraft? Well, the D variant has the capability of air-to-air refueling, the first time this has ever been done on this aircraft. Why would we want this sort of thing, Alfie? Well, you want it because these aircraft, surveillance aircraft and control aircraft, you want them up as long as possible. So there's a few different factors that limit how long an aircraft can be in the air. Fuel, crew, and I think that's about it. Probably payloads, but
as you say, payload as well, probably.
But yeah, so the normal factor is for crew. Now that it can get air-to-air fueled, the limiting factor is for crew. So it has extended its time on station from 4 hours to 7 hours, which include obviously it's almost double the length, which is always ideal. As well as this, it does come with further radar developments. But I have to be honest with you, I'm not a radar technician. So I'm not going to go into that too often.
I do think the E2 is quite a cool aircraft, to be honest.
It is, isn't
I remember seeing them when I first became quite interested in aircraft. On the aircraft carriers, I saw these massive, well, they're not massive, but they are large aircraft taking off from aircraft carriers. Aircraft carriers, fascinating things. Right, Aiden, did you know that the FAA and the EASA have a renewed partnership?
Have they?
Yes, they have. Well, apparently, they've reaffirmed their collaboration with a new declaration of intent. Now, this declaration of intent emphasises the commitment to enhancing safety and security in civil aviation. How cool is that? Not really.
Sounds bloody boring.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
And that is why we're going to swiftly move on to the next car, because we do not want to bore our viewers, which is why we're probably going to bore you a bit more with this next bit of news. Aiden, would you like to go ahead with this little bit?
Yeah, so everyone loves sports, or I don't actually. I pretty much hate sports.
Neither do I.
We'll pretend everyone likes sports. Obviously, the Olympics, next one, 2028 in LA. Well, what is the official airline? It is Delta. And Delta has had its how do I say that word, Alfie?
Inaugural.
Yeah, that's
something like that.
Flight between Los Angeles and Brisbane. That happened, I think, actually last week.
It was
this
around.
day.
It was around about last
Yeah,
week,
so
wasn't it?
Thursday. This flight operated by Delta's A350, one of theirs, in a special Olympic livery.
Now we've both seen this. We
have.
And it is very, very, very lovely, isn't it?
It is. It says LA 28 with some palm trees and all that sort of stuff. I do suggest having a look at the livery if you get a chance. But yeah, it's connecting the 2028 and the 2023 host cities of the Summer Olympics.
Yeah, I've never actually been I've never been a sport guy myself.
Have you not?
No, so this news isn't actually that exciting. But I'll be honest, the livery was fantastic.
Have you got a special livery that's your favourite?
Oh, that is a great.
Because I'm a big fan of special liveries.
That is a great question. I don't know if I have a special livery. I could probably give you an airline livery. Oh, I really liked, for some reason, the British Airways livery on Concorde. I just thought it was
Which one, though?
the
Newest one? Or the
latest.
One? Yeah,
the last. The one that was in 2003. I just think that's fantastic. I think it's just so simple on such. Because when you've got an aircraft like that, you don't need a livery to make it stand out.
No. Well,
So I think there's a simplicity. It was like the Air France one as well, but obviously British Airways is better because we're British, we're not French. So
Yeah.
I believe you stand with me by that.
Yeah. So what would be my favourite aircraft livery? Probably the Valoris Aerolaris, butchered that pronunciation. The Iceland Air 757 one.
Oh,
If you know which one I'm on about.
the Aurora Borealis.
That one, the Aurora Borealis.
Now-
Beautiful air.
I've been looking at. Obviously, I have been to Iceland. I was doing the 757. So I remember I was actually at the airport when we were leaving, and there was an aircraft, and it had the Aurora Borealis logo on it. And I was kind of annoyed that I couldn't actually be on that plane because I just thought that'd be so cool. And then I could then, on this podcast, tell you, and you'd envy me, but I don't think that's going to happen.
No. Another one of my favourite ones is the blue BA World Flyer? City Flyer?
I think it was One World.
Is it One World?
One World. It was on the 747, wasn't it?
No, this was an A320 livery.
Oh, was it?
What was it called? Blue A320 livery.
This is interesting. This will be new for me.
Is it Better World? It's a special livery. Here we go. The BA Better World.
Wow.
Like, look how pretty that looks.
That's very cool.
That's actually quite a nice livery.
Yeah, I do.
That's one of my favourites as well. I have seen that one before.
Yeah.
I've also seen quite a few Ryanair special liveries. Do you know what? Something that came across my desk earlier.
What came across your desk, Aiden?
It was actually on TikTok, but I saw loads of Ryanair when Ryanair used to fly the 737-734s with small engines. I can't remember what engine they are.
B732. That'd be the one we covered last time, wasn't it?
Yeah, they were pretty much flying advertising aircraft. So they had the Sun advertising there. There was another British newspaper advertised on there. Loads of different companies. That was like quite cool liveries.
It's quite interesting. Well, I suppose when you're a new start on airline, you have to kind of find ways to make money other than flying, don't you?
That's a good idea. Although, it doesn't really matter what the outside of the aircraft is. It's just another way why Ryanair is actually quite a good airline in terms of marketing.
I was going to say, Ryanair is fantastic, and especially now they've got their new fleet of 737.
8,200s.
They don't call them the MAX 8s, do they?
No, they
Because
don't.
Obviously, as we know with Boeing, 2 of their MAX 8s plummeted. And so Ryanair re-changed the name of their aircraft in order. Was it just not to scare people?
Yeah, it was. It's because a lot of people wouldn't fly Maxes. They called it the 737 8,200s.
Very interesting, isn't it? The 737 8200. Now, I've seen quite a few of these because obviously I live near East Midlands and they all fly over. You can't hear them when they fly over. It's so quiet. Compared to the usual 737s, I mean, it's mental. So, moving on, we have our next section, which is aviation oddities. And we're going to be talking about the aircraft graveyards today, which is in Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Tucson, Arizona. Which is quite cool. Now, everyone who likes aircraft will know about this place because it is fascinating.
But for the people that don't know, explain, what is it?
And that's what we're going to do. It is home to the largest aeroplane graveyard in the world, with over 4,000 retired aircraft. Now, are these are commercial, aren't they? Commercial jets? Military.
Yeah, not...
Because I know there are some with commercial and some with military.
No, yeah. It's because it's an Air Force base.
That makes sense.
It is.
Military that makes sense. Yeah, but there is 4,000 retired military aircraft there. And I'm sure if you look online, you'll see some very fantastic pictures. But it's cool because it has obviously, because it's in the desert, it's got a really dry climate. And this actually helps preserve the aircraft, which is one of the reasons why they go there. And obviously, its size, well, let's talk about size, because it's just fascinating. 2,600 acres in the Sonorian Desert. And obviously, like we said, the desert environment with low humidity, decreases corrosion rates. So that's why you store them, because then you can just like swap parts from older aircraft, whatever. Aircraft storage.
Sorry, as you say, so it's not civilian aircraft, it's military aircraft, but from all the branches of the US military, so Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps, and Army, as well as other government agencies, Homeland Security, Janet, probably have a few of their aircraft there, who knows. But yeah, so everything's there. You've got fighter jets, bombers, transport planes, helicopters, and we're talking throughout the ages. B-52s are there. What other aircraft are off the top of my head? And there's quite a few Vietnam War.
I was going to say there'd be quite a few old aircraft like some Vietnam aircraft. Oh, this is actually testing me now. There was a F8, wasn't there? That was like and then the A10. Actually, there'd be some A10s as well.
There'll be many of those.
Unfortunately, anyway,
so some of our viewers might be thinking, well, why would you have a graveyard of aircraft? Why wouldn't you just break it down and sell the parts?
Well, that's due to quite a few reasons. You got basically they reclaim parts off the old jets, so usable parts off some jets which are either just not being used anymore if they're outdated. So let's say a new aircraft comes out, they'll be outdated. But obviously, when the new aircraft come out, they're only new variants of the older variant, aren't they? So they use pretty much the same parts. It'd just be like radars and electronics, avionics, and stuff which are different. So all the usable parts are removed and repurposed to maintain active fleet. For an example, now this is going to be a big example, the B-52 Stratofortress.
Yeah.
Technically the B-52H Stratofortress. Now, this plane is going to go on till 2050.
Which is crazy, because when did they come out?
I think it was 1952, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it's almost
almost a decade in service. So obviously this is a great reason why you should have a boneyard for this. C-5 Galaxies, for example, in the US military, you've got loads of them in the boneyard. And also, the other reason is just simply because it's disposable. Aircraft deemed irreplaceable are dismantled and recycled. So,
I mean, the main reason why they stay in the desert with this anti-corrosion desert is
just for like maintenance and regeneration.
Well, yeah, and it's the potential reactivation of the aircraft, just in case they need to be required back into service. This desert environment allows them to potentially be reactivated. But yeah, if they aren't needed anymore, but they are dismantled.
Obviously, you've got quite a large public interest as well with this.
Talk about that. Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt you. One of my dreams is to fly a paraglider over the.
You've also seen the videos.
I've also seen those videos, and I really want to do it.
I think that is really cool. Yeah. Do you know? I find not just this boneyard, because you also have another boneyard for commercial jets. Sorry, that's why I got mixed up at the start. I'm pretty sure it's in the Nevada desert as well. You get all of the old like 747s and everything from previous airlines and previous generations. It's quite upset, to be honest, because I loved, and this is how I feel when I go into a museum as well, because you look at all the aircraft and you just think, oh, they should be flying. I'd love to see it fly. Do you know what I mean? But like, yeah, there's quite a large public interest. Like Aiden said, people do paragliding over it.
I was going to say there's one graveyard quite close to us, isn't there? Kemble. That's got 747s in it.
That's got the 747s from British Airways, hasn't
It
it?
does. I've been on it. Very nice aircraft.
Obviously not when you went on it, because I bet it was broken down a little bit, wasn't it?
Well, actually, no. So they've turned it into like a like a flying museum sort of thing. So it's stationary, but at the back they've actually got this open space. They've knocked out some of the seats, put an open space. So they've got a DJ deck. They have like parties and like there's a bar up there. It's quite an interesting idea.
I think that's quite cool. Also, 747, I think it's cool because isn't it like one of the only aircraft where the passenger sits in front of the pilot?
In front of pilots, yes.
Because obviously the deck at the top is like further back, isn't it? This is quite cool. So all the people in business class, because that's where business class was, wasn't it, at the front of the 747? So they'd all be ahead of you. They'd all be ahead of the pilot, which is pretty cool.
Ever flown on a 747 before?
No, I haven't.
I have.
Have you?
That's the whole reason I brought that up.
Have you ever flown on a 757?
No, I haven't.
But I have.
Okay.
So, when I flew to Iceland Air, because they have a large fleet of 757s. So I was fortunate enough to feel the power of the sports car of the air, is what they're called. Right, so historic aircraft at the Boneyard. We'll quickly cover this. So you've got aircraft B-52s, like we said, F-14 Tomcats.
Another carrier aircraft. Links to our story, actually.
C-130 Hercules.
I'm still sour about the
RAF.
The RAF retiring their ones. I actually went and watched the retirement flight.
I know.
The RAF Cosford, watched the 3 aircraft. I unfortunately stood at the wrong place. I expected them to go over the train station.
Yeah.
And no, they flew straight over the museum, and I was like, for fuck's sake.
I was going to say, that'd be quite annoying.
Quite annoying. But I still saw him for about a minute.
To be
a
fair,
second even, sorry.
I've got kind of a similar story to that one. So it's not relating to the same aircraft, but it's relating to an Antonov that took off from East Midlands once. We had quite low cloud that day, and usually when the Antonovs take off from East Midlands, they're quite heavily loaded. So usually when they're flying over, they're not that high, because obviously they want to burn the least amount of fuel, and they don't have the climb performance that they usually do. So I went outside, it was pouring rain, and I just wanted to see it, because I've never properly seen one, and I wanted to see it. So went outside, and I never saw a thing. All I heard was it did sound very lovely, but never got to see it. And I'm bitter about that. But I have seen the AN225 fly overhead when it did its flight from Prestwick. You were there at Prestwick, weren't you? When it did?
No, I wasn't.
I thought you were.
So I was at. So the only time I've seen the 225 was at East Midlands. I was flying back from Poland. Went to the car in the car park. Looked above me. Thought, bloody hell, what's that thing? It's the tail of a 225.
That was a very long time. That was like 2015. I think it was.
I was young man back then.
You see, I never got to see that for a very, very, very. I was upset when I heard about it, but I never got to see it. Anyway, so let's have a look. What else have we got?
Well, we're gonna.
Aidan, would you like to follow us on to the next section?
Well, I mean, this is your section now, the engine of the week.
That is my section.
That is your section.
That is my section.
I'll let you take it away.
Right. So, engine of the week. Now, I've chosen the Rolls-Royce Olympus 593 jet engines for a very good reason, because it's on my favourite aircraft. In fact, it's on 2 of my favourite aircraft, but we'll get to that in a minute. So, the Olympus 593 originated from the Bristol Olympus, which is fascinating because you had Bristol, who made the Olympus basically at the start, and they added this to the Avro Vulcan, which is one of my favourite aircraft in the world. So, and then later on, Rolls-Royce actually bought Bristol, and then that's why it's called the Rolls-Royce Olympus 593, which is on Concorde, which is very cool. So it's a turbojet engine with afterburners, or as us Brits like to call it, reheat. It had a maximum thrust of about 38,000 pounds, or 169 kilonewtons, with afterburner. This was only on one of the engines, remember. So that's how Concorde could get to Mach 2 at 60,000 feet, Aiden. 60,000 feet.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Would you like to know about some design innovations of this?
Tell me about it, bud.
Variable intake system, which was designed to slow incoming supersonic airflow to subsonic speeds before reaching the engine. This is just to increase the efficiency. Obviously, you had the reheat, which is afterburner. I may not need to explain it, but I'll go very quickly. It's when you basically, when a jet runs, there's still oxygen in the airflow that comes out of the engine. So you use the afterburner, which is injecting fuel into the back of the engine, and that basically ignites the fuel with the leftover oxygen, making the process more efficient, but not the engine more efficient.
Okay.
Much. And now this one made me laugh. It said noise reduction, exhaust nozzles, which are incorporated features to mitigate noise. But the Olympus was famously loud. Now, usually with nozzles on fighter jets and stuff, they open and close on the back, don't they? And obviously they did on Concorde as well.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure if it was actually for noise restriction, but
Reduction.
Yeah, sorry. Not the same thing, really. Is it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but that's pretty cool. And then you had obviously its performance, and the main thing was its efficiency, which was it wasn't very efficient, as we all know, which is why it costs over £10,000 a ticket to go to JFK or the Bahamas, which is the other flight that I used to do during the summer. And obviously it had a quite high environmental impact. Now, these are all the reasons I love it, because high environmental impact. Awesome. You saw the black smoke from that, but I started with the Vulcan as well.
Yeah, all the B-52.
Or the B-52. Do you want to know a fun fact about
Tell me.
why the B-52 has black smoke? Well, because in its engines it has something called water injection. So it injects the water into the flame tube to increase the expansion. Obviously, when you increase the expansion, increases the pressure, increases the thrust. Very fascinating. But it dampens the flame, which is why you get that sooty, unburnt, unclean burn. So obviously you get all the soot coming out the back. So that's why you see the B-52 with a lot of smoke coming out of it.
Yeah. I know you've definitely told me that before. I'm just wondering, did you tell me it on the last episode of podcast or not?
I don't think so. But if I did, I apologise to everybody. But at least you know now anyway.
At least you know why.
No, I think I told... I don't think I told you the last episode. I definitely have told
me.
you.
Because I asked you, I was like, why is it so damaging to the environment? Not that I really care.
Have you seen the new engines? I think they're called the Rolls-Royce F-130 engines for the B-52.
I was going to say they're upgrading them, aren't they?
Well, they had to because...
extend their life to 2050.
Yeah, exactly. And they had to design them in the twin jet because obviously the two jets together, because of weight and stuff, if you had 4 single engines, it'd throw the weight off the wing and, well, it wouldn't render it flyable. But anyway, basically, that's everything that is need to know. That's everything that you guys need to know about the Rolls-Royce Olympus 593 back then. Obviously, it was on my favourite jet, Concorde, and previous models on the Vulcan, the TSR-2. Did you know that?
No, I don't actually know.
It was a prototype bomber for the fighter bomber.
No, I do recognise TSR.
Aiden's just looked it up, and there were some golf clubs. Which
yes, TSR2.
That is the wrong TSR.
Ah, yes, I do recognise the name.
It was the bomber. If you want to go and see one, if you want to go and see one, there is one at Duxford next to a Vulcan, ironically. So obviously, the same engine.
I've actually been to Duxford.
You would have seen that.
Yeah, that is.
Probably didn't take much interest in it because maybe you didn't know what actually it fully was.
Yeah.
But that was a fighter bomber designed to do pretty much everything, and it was going to be better than everything. However, it cost too much, and I think it was Margaret Thatcher who'd said no to it. So,
yeah, there we go.
Margaret Thatcher, if you're watching, which you probably won't be.
I don't think she's watching it. Anyway, moving on. We'll go on to our next segment, our AAIB Spotlight. So today's one is a notable UK aviation accident. It is yet again a PA-28. Quite topical. Obviously, we are flying with PA-28. Its registration, Golf Bravo Oscar Tango India. This occurred in October, only 2 years ago actually, in 2022. And during an ILS approach to runway 26 at Exeter Airport, it had a few issues. The pilot initiated an early descent while trying to get onto the ILS approach. This action was likely due to a losing situational awareness of the aircraft's position relative to the runway and when to descend.
Bad airmanship.
Exactly. It's, potential for controlled flight into terrain, which is not ideal. There was also a malfunction in the glide slope deviator indicator, which further complicated matters. This issue may have been exacerbated, got there in the end, by insufficient cross-checking with other available navigation aids, such as the DME, or the direction measuring equipment. So what's this basically saying? Well, for those who don't know, the ILS system on a PA-28 uses two deviation needles, a vertical and a horizontal one. Basically, when these are in a perfect cross, you're on the ILS. You should be descending at a rate of, I think, 400 feet per minute.
I'm not sure. It just takes you onto the glide slope, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's up to the speed of the aircraft variates. How quickly you need to descend. But anyway, if the horizontal one moves up, then you are high of a glide slope and you must descend, and vice versa.
I thought this is high. You have to.
No, you're high. So it basically literally tells you what to do. If it's high, you're high.
Yeah.
So you must descend. If it's low, you're low. You must climb. If the horizontal one is left, then you are slightly left of the ILS. You must turn right. By this malfunctioning, the pilot will be looking at it thinking, well, why is it not descending? So he'll keep flying straight, or in this case, he'll descend early. But how could he have cross-checked this? Well, he could have checked the DME. If he looked at the DME and it still said 7 DME away, so 7 nautical miles away from the aerodrome, and he was descending at that rate, and he was like at 1,000 feet, 500 feet, still 7 miles away, and should have been putting alarm bells.
Do you know what that is? That is bad cockpit resource management.
It is, yeah. Again, the whole point of these is to teach us lessons.
It is. Yeah.
There was actually one more other thing that the AAIB did notice, and this was that ATC only intervened 3 minutes after the descent had begun and instructed the pilot to climb, which averted the potential train collision.
Right.
But a subsequent approach, only using the localizer, resulted in a safe landing. So what are our lessons for this sort of incident, Alfie?
Our lessons: instrument cross-check. Always verify navigation instruments and cross-reference available data. If you can't, I'm assuming he mustn't have been able to see, because obviously...
Yeah.
So you have to be able to trust your instruments. If you can't, you need to trust your instruments. If you can't see anything around, that's the only thing you've got to keep you alive. Trust in your instruments. And like I say, these are all the lessons that we get from these aircraft investigations, because we never do. The investigators never do this just to for like legal cases and stuff. This is like to teach people how to become better pilots. Pre-flight equipment checks while the glide slope system has been reported and serviceable earlier. Maintenance cleared without detecting issues. Pilots should remain cautious and very critical. Verify critical systems post-maintenance. So you should check the technical log, see if there's any issues which have been checked with the, I've lost my...
Checks with mechanics?
Yeah. Check the technical log, make sure everything's in sound order, because if there isn't something that looks right, it will be on the technical log, written down as, well, something that just isn't right, is it? Also, ATC as a resource, air traffic control as a resource. So the air traffic control intervention highlighted the importance of effective communication and reliance on external support when situational awareness diminishes. Very important air traffic control, isn't it?
It is, yeah, especially when you get lost. Once you know you are definitely lost and not just unsure of your position, the first thing you need to do is, well, talk. So you talk to air traffic control, and you just need to say it straight up, I'm lost.
Yep.
So why do we talk to air traffic control? Well, if we talk to a radar station, and you have a transponder, they will be able to find you anywhere to the top of Europe within a few seconds.
Yep.
And then you know exactly where you are, or they know where you are. You can also get a QDM, so a track to the aerodrome, and they can obviously, you can then find out exactly where your position is. So yeah, always use other resources. ATC is there for obviously safe, expeditious flight, and that's where you've got to make sure we use them.
Yeah, it's very important, isn't it?
Yeah, so that wraps up our AAREB report. So our overall lessons. Instruments, make sure you check them. They are what you should always be believing in when you're in IMC conditions. However, sometimes they do fail, which is why you need to make sure you cross-check them, making sure, obviously, to also check the actual equipment.
Read the technical log.
Read in the technical log.
And also liaise if you have to with any maintenance people around the area, see if there's been any issues with the aircraft lately. But it'll all be recorded in a technical log, won't it? And also, you need to use air traffic control as a resource, because if you don't, then you'll end up dying.
Yeah, that was literally where I was going. I was going to say dead. But yeah, that on that lovely note, we're going to move on to our next segment. Newer segment, this one, airline highlight. So today's airline under the hat is Virgin Atlantic. We're going to highlight their journey from zero to hero. Is that cringy?
No, I think that is a reasonable way of putting it, to be honest.
Yeah, so Virgin Atlantic was founded in 1984 by Sir Richard Branson. He did it in an aim to disrupt the aviation industry with a focus on customer experience and flair. Its first flight was using a leased Boeing 742, so 747-200, connecting from London Gatwick to Newark in New Jersey. The airline's unique approach emphasised entertainment, comfort and style, becoming the first airline to actually offer seatback entertainment for all classes in 1991.
That's very interesting. Would you like to know something that's really interesting? How the actual business started. So he was, I can't remember exactly which airport he was at, but he was somewhere in America, and he had an American Airlines flight back to the UK. And obviously, it had been delayed quite a lot. And Richard, the quick-thinking man he is, decided he'd just hire a private jet out instead. But he went around the airport with a billboard saying that he was renting out a private jet. If anybody wanted to come with him, they could give him some money towards it. And so technically, that was the first ever Virgin Atlantic flight that ever took place. And then he thought, well, I can see something with this. So he decided to lease a Boeing 747, which I think is pretty cold.
That's quite cool, actually.
Not many people actually know that.
I've heard of it, but I didn't know if it was. I've heard of that premise of something, but it's back of my mind. Couldn't quite remember it.
I just think it's pretty cool.
That is quite cool. Yeah, so Virgin Atlantic, what else did they do? Well, they introduced premium economy in the following year, 1992, and their services, which did include a chauffeur-driven airport transfer and stylish upper-class cabins, which elevated the transatlantic flying experience. Now, when was the last time you heard of a civilian airline giving you a chauffeur-driven airport transfer just for premium economy?
I have never heard of that.
I've never heard of that either.
No,
now, I'm guessing they definitely don't do it anymore, but...
No, I was going to say, because if they did do it then, I'd always fly on a premium economy.
Yeah, exactly. I've once flown on a premium economy, actually, because Singapore Airlines did upgrade us because they delayed us for our flight. To my dad's listening, we were on the A380. We were going to be on the A380, but Singapore Airlines messed us around a bit, so we ended up on the 777.
Oh,
I know,
bit of a downgrade.
It was. I was hoping for the A380.
Still cool.
Exactly.
Much
But,
bigger than anything I've ever been on.
what's the biggest aircraft you've been on?
So it's got a 757.
That's
The
quite
biggest
small.
one. Exactly. That's why it's biggest. The only other ones I've been on back when Monarch was still an
I
airline.
never flew a Monarch.
Back when
Always wanted to.
Monarch was an airline, they flew I think it was the A320. I've
yeah,
been
we did fly out.
been on A320. I've been on a 737-800 as well. And that's been everything. Yeah, so nothing exciting, just your usual passenger jet experience.
As usual. So back to VA, Virgin Atlantic. They also, now I would say this is a bit more up to date, but it's still 2008. They pioneered sustainable initiatives operating the world's first commercial biofuel flight in 2008.
Pretty cool, isn't it?
It is. That was before, I think, everyone started worrying about the environment, saying, we must do...
I think it was the period in time when everyone was starting to realise, oh, here we go, there's something actually happening here. So obviously aviation before the 2000s was mental. You used to have, wasn't there a law suggesting you had to have more than 2 engines if you're crossing the Atlantic?
Yeah, ETOPS. That's, do you know what? That's actually quite an interesting subject.
I think we should talk about it a little bit.
I reckon we save it for another episode.
That is a good idea.
Because ETOPS is quite a long topic.
It is quite a long topic.
And I can't quite remember much, all of ETOPS.
I think we'll save that. We'll save that for next episode. Cause
yeah,
that
we'll
is
talk about ETOPS.
Yeah,
it's the whole reason why the 747, the A380, 707 all had more than 2 engines, and why modern aircraft now have 2 engines, and why you might, if you use flight radar, see an A320 flying across the pond and think, how the hell's that thing flying to America?
Actually, what I thought once, it was I think it was a JetBlue flight from America, and it apparently is only a business jet aircraft.
Yes.
So it.
Yeah, you used to do that as well.
I don't even think it was a long range A320 as well. I think it was just a normal one, which is pretty cool, isn't it?
I know BA, just before COVID, they did BA Flight 1. It was an A318, full business class cockpit. Cabin. I think it had 18 seats, but don't shoot me if it had more or less. It flew from London City all the way to, I think it was JFK, but it stopped in Shannon for a refuel because obviously London City couldn't take off with all that.
That is a very small aircraft.
That's that can go that far is crazy. But yeah, back to Virgin.
So what were the challenges and setbacks that we had? Despite its success, the airline faced significant challenges. Of course it does. Every airline faces significant challenges. Financial difficulties hit during the 2008 global recession, co-pounded by the fierce competition and by volatile fuel prices. Now I'm assuming, as we mentioned before, in 2008, it had the first commercial biofuel flight. Maybe they were trying to see if biofuel
was the way to go.
Was the way to go and see if it was actually going to be much cheaper, which I don't think it mustn't have been because they're not using it fully now, are they? I think they're using it for a few flights.
There's a few airlines that are using SAF, Sustainable Aviation Fuels, but no, I don't think we've had one fully on it. I don't think.
Not one airline, anyway. Anyway, as well, we can't forget the COVID-19 pandemic further strained operations. Now, unfortunately, after the COVID, that's when we saw the demise of all the 747s.
Unfortunately.
From British Airways, and also, like we say, Virgin Atlantic as well. And obviously, it was always my dream as a kid to see a Virgin Atlantic 747, and I got to see one once. And that was you got to fly one.
Yeah, Virgin Atlantic.
I actually used to know somebody whose uncle was a pilot from Virgin Atlantic who flew 747, which was actually pretty cool. Yeah, but COVID, that kind of fucked everything up,
didn't it? Yeah,
everything.
I can't even remember a pre-COVID world.
So obviously, effects of this, fleet reductions, more layoffs, and at the end of it was the end of operations at Gatwick. A £1.2 billion rescue plan in 2020 helped Virgin Atlantic recover, showcasing its resilience. And now they're like just now they're buying new A330 Neos at the moment. Well, they've certainly had a few. Now we go on to the partnerships and global presence of Virgin Atlantic. What do we got? Strategic partnerships, such as a joint venture with Delta Airlines and Air France slash KLM. Well, it's not a slash, but Air France and KLM strengthened Virgin Atlantic's market share. Now they operate over 300 transatlantic flights daily, covering 340 destinations. Now, if you think about it, from the day he started with the private jet story I told you, to now operating over 300 transatlantic flights. And bear in mind, this is only Virgin Atlantic. You also have Virgin...
America and Virgin Australia.
Yeah, which doesn't sound like a lot, but Richard Branson, fantastic guy, because... Obviously, you don't just have Virgin Airlines as well, do you? You've got like Virgin Media, Virgin Media, Virgin Galactic, Virgin Music. Fascinating.
Virgin Music?
Yeah, Virgin Music, yeah.
I saw something really good. Virgin Cruises.
Virgin Cruises, yeah. Virgin Islands. But that was just...
I was like, what? No, that's actually struck me as another point we could talk about on another podcast. Explain partnerships, because...
I think partnerships are quite interesting, to be honest.
Yeah, how they actually work. Well,
for example,
that would be a...
Star Alliance.
Yeah, Star Alliance. What are the other ones? One World. Star Alliance, and... Well, Air France and KLM are one. There's another one. There's another famous one.
I can't remember, but we're going to save this. We're going to save this for next episode, so we can give you all the juicy information that you'd like to know.
Juicy goss.
Right. Flight facts quiz.
So this actually marks the end of our podcast for today. We will cover our flight fact quiz. Our last question from last episode was, what was the most common aircraft in the world? And Alfie, what was the most common aircraft in the world?
It was the Cessna 172 Skyhawk. 44,000 were sold, and they were introduced in 1965.
Wow.
It's quite impressive.
That is quite impressive, actually. So what is today's question? Well, today's question is, what was the world's first fixed-wing airline? Well,
now, it is very interesting, isn't it, this one?
It is. We will obviously tell you the answer next week.
We shall.
So that signs off our second episode.
Wraps it up quite neatly.
Brilliant. So we'll catch you guys after... Well, actually, I guess we need to say this, don't we? Obviously, at the time of recording, this is our festive episode.
This is our festive episode.
Probably should have made it a bit more festive in hindsight, but
it's okay. We'll learn for next time.
So hopefully a Merry Christmas if you're watching this before Christmas, or hopefully you had a Merry Christmas if you're watching this after Christmas.
Yeah, and this is the year 2024, just so if anybody wants to know that as well.
Yeah.
The 2024 Christmas festive season.
Exactly.
And I can't wait to go back home, to be honest. It's been a busy bit at university.
3 months. But yeah, so we will see you guys in 2025.
Yes, we will.
And there is potential. A little bit of gossip I've heard in the studio, but maybe move into a new studio in the next year.
We may get some luxury next year. We might get. Currently, we're not in a podcast studio at the moment. We're in a computer suite. A computer suite, yes.
But no, next year we are hopefully. Well, we'll let them know. We'll let them
know. So, Aiden, do you know what I really want to say? So, guys, we will see you next year.